So I'm Jamie, I run a recruitment team at Darwin, and Katie is the specialist headhunter for anything to do with data in central Germany. So she knows exactly what data candidates should be offering to get hired more easily. She knows what companies should be thinking about when they need to hire data people, and we're just going to pick her brains on some small nuggets of information that you might find useful if you're hiring data people or if you are looking for a data science job. So, first question, when you're taking a job briefing from a client, so if people watching, they're telling Katie what she needs to go and find for them, what are some of the things that companies forget to tell you that are actually really important for you to be able to do a good job?
So it's a good question. I feel like a lot of the problems come from the fact that they don't really go into depth about what they want that person to be like as a personality level. So the soft skills are really important. So they might have a really good CV and they might tell me they need Python and AWS and SQL, but what they don't say is what that person needs to contribute to the team in terms of the cultural fit, or making sure that their personality is the right person for them. So I think you can't get that across from a CV, but in a briefing call with a client, we need to know exactly what their structure is a bit more, so we can really see is it a young team, is it an older team, is it a startup company, what type of personality fit are they looking for. So I think that's quite a key one that usually goes unnoticed, and why a headhunter can also be quite good, because you can pick someone's brains and actually see, just taken away from the CV, is that person going to fit in with that company's culture as well as everything else.
Absolutely, because we're finding new people, we're not finding new skills, and if we don't understand the kind of person that you need in the team, we can't do the job that we want to do for you. You spend a huge portion of your day looking at CVs, so you more than most people know what is a good data science CV and what is a bad data science CV. So can you tell us your pet peeves, the things you hate the most about a bad CV and why?
Okay, so firstly it's probably just the way that CVs are always backwards, or not always, but a lot of the times you're putting people are putting their not their last employment, that should be at the top. It's usually not, or sometimes it's not, and they're putting something that they did from 2020 or 2012. So making sure that what you're doing right now is most important, so that should always be at the top. Also, a lot of people don't really go into what they've done as in terms of projects. Mm-hmm. So they say a lot about their skill set and what kind of tech stack they've got, which is brilliant, but they don't actually say what projects they've introduced that tech stack into. So again, that's why it's important on my calls to really gauge kind of what projects they've worked on, so you can actually picture, all well and good, you've done Python, you've done machine learning models, NLP, but how have you integrated that into a project? So a lot of, obviously on a CV, you've only got 2 pages, you can't write it too much. I think a lot of people forget that the actual projects that you've worked on are quite key. So in my briefing, it's really important for me to really understand what project that is, because ultimately, if you're going industry focused, anyone could have a skill set and you don't actually know what industry they're really working on until you know what projects they're working on. So bullet points are good, but sometimes it's just not enough detail in terms of your day-to-day life of what they do.
So we need to understand what is the context that you've applied certain skills to.
And I think the other one would be, as much as obviously we love really positive, but sometimes people's title is a data scientist, but when you look into their CV more, they're actually a student and they're actually doing that on their masters, so it's voluntary work. And for me, that's a pet peeve, because you look really good, it looks great, but then a company need professional experience. So as much as there's positives, because we can recruit for students, but obviously a company needs 5 to 6 years experience sometimes. And if you've got a title as data scientist, but then when you really look in, you're actually doing that in your masters, and they're the products you've worked on. Unfortunately, in the real world, the jobs that we're recruiting for, they need to have that professional, paid experience as well.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with being a work student.
No, not at all.
It's a great thing, but it's the misrepresentation of, I don't have the real world experience that perhaps my CV suggests I do in a corporate professional environment. There is a big difference between being a data scientist in a research project and having a great education. That is great, but when you misrepresent that as real world experience, that can be quite frustrating for us and whoever reads the CV.
Yeah, and for the candidate as well, because as I said, you need to be a student before you can get a job, so it is a catch-22 in a way, but you don't want to go through a process or get quite close and then find out that actually they're actually not looking for that caliber of people. So yeah, if we know that from the beginning, that does make it easier, because we can target your search for somebody that's going to need junior data scientists rather than putting you forward for a high-end job where it's not going to be a good experience for you in the end.
What is some of the hardest skills for you to find? Like, what kind of job comes in and truthfully, honestly, you're thinking, oh my god, this is going to be really difficult?
Oh, there's a few, isn't it? No. Architect roles, so data engineering, data architects, there's a massive kind of influence on kind of what comes first, engineer and architect. And some jobs, they advertise as a data engineer, but then when you look a bit closer, it's definitely an architect type of role. So that's around the infrastructure and building the pipelines, and there's sometimes people have data engineer titles, but they're really going for architect roles. Mm-hmm. I think that's quite difficult at the moment for me. Master data is one that I've been a bit more tough in, so data governance and compliance and stuff, because again that comes under data, but it's completely different to data scientists and machine learning and things like that. And the search that I'm enjoying the most, I would say at the moment, is machine learning engineers. AI and ML, absolutely massive. Companies haven't probably focused enough on that at the moment. They're going out as they need data scientists, which is great. But really, when you go into the job spec with a client, it's actually a machine learning engineer they're looking for. And I think we'll agree that maybe in a few years from now, there'll be a lot more job roles for machine learning engineers. And some companies have already grasped it. They've already got, they're advertising for those engineers already. But some companies haven't, and then they're wondering why they don't fit that job spec. But really it's because you can go more niche now. Data science is massive, machine learning is more niche. So I guess it's finding the boundaries between what the job title is as well.
For us, that's a good thing. When businesses don't fully understand how best to advertise their roles to attract the skills that they want, that's a good thing, because that creates a problem that we can come and fix. But to be honest, it's an easily fixable problem. How a company categorises a role and how they advertise that role to engage the right audience is something that companies should be able to fix on their own. So good point. Worth considering if you're advertising for a data scientist. Should you be advertising it as a machine learning engineer role instead, or something completely different?
Yeah.
And if you still can't find them with a good advert, then you definitely do need to come speak to us. What do you think is a sensible interview process? And what I mean by that is, how many stages should it be, and how long should it take to make a hire?
So again, a good question, because every company is different, and a lot of them take a long time. Some of them don't take as long. So there's probably no massively right answer to that, especially because it depends on the size of the company, how big the team is, who you're going to meet. Again, if it's remote or in site, it's going to take a long time to get the time of work to go. But on average, I'd say the best processes are definitely the ones that obviously go quicker, but still get everything in. So one of my clients, they do a good stage of an hour first call with the technical lead. So I think that's good, because you get straight in, and ultimately the HR screening stage, if you trust us enough, which most people do, we do that for you. We're the ones that will spend that 40 minutes to an hour really vetting that candidate personality, soft skills, and finding out their motives first. So it should lead them straight into a technical talk, which again is better for everyone. You're skipping a step really. And that's usually an hour, gets to know, how you're doing and stuff. If it is a higher machine learning or engineer type role, then I do think, technical task is sometimes they're beneficial for the client. And therefore, usually you get given that straight after that first stage. Usually give them a week to complete it. It shouldn't take that long at all. Should only be an hour or two project. Otherwise, you're going to lose candidates in that chance, because a week is a long time and you've got a full-time job. So a short technical task, but just so you can see they can code and they know their stuff. After that, if the kind of technical task goes well, then I think a second or say third stage interview with some more people in that team. So again, a lot of clients that I work with manage to do it in one kind of sitting. So you've got 3 people on that team. That's really good for the candidate as well, because they can really see who they could be engaging with in the company. And then I would say after that, if needed, sometimes it's not needed, then a half an hour kind of HR call. Mm-hmm. So in total, kind of 3 stages max, with potentially a technical task in the beginning, and all in the space of 3 weeks, maybe a month if you really want. But I would say that 3 weeks is kind of the longest you want to keep it.
Longest, yeah.
Longest, yeah.
So the reason for that is because there's a huge amount of competition for data talent, and the quicker you can evaluate someone and potentially hire them, the less opportunity there is for competing companies to engage that person in a conversation and try to hire them. Even if they don't successfully hire them, they could inflate your preferred candidate's salary expectations, or they could get them instead of you. It invites a huge amount of problems when you take too long.
And I think again, like, it does also depend on the actual role, you know. So we're talking about technical task. If it is somebody that you're going to need, somebody that is a more senior person, or somebody that's a big corporate company where they're going to need to work with different people. If the role is more, you know, a couple of people in a team, or it's a start-up company, you probably don't even need that long. You could make the process as short as a week if you're getting 2 interviews in there quite early on. So I guess it does depend on that. And there's some roles you know exactly what you're looking for. And we've got a prime example recently. One of my clients, they took one CV from us, got an interview from them the next day, and second interview the following day, I think it was, and we had a deal done on the Friday. So we placed that candidate, one CV send in 4 days. And that's because they knew exactly what they wanted, we knew what they wanted, and they did it. So it can happen. Again, it depends on the roles, but that worked really well because it meant the candidate was invested. He knew that they wanted them, and therefore, you know, he was happy to sign that on the dotted line as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
If you give it 4 weeks, they're going to get other offers.
A fast interview process also signals like clear intent and interest from the company that's thinking about hiring that person. So there are very few disadvantages to having a really speedy, fast interview process. Most companies will look at you on LinkedIn that don't know you and see like data science headhunter, and their assumption might be another person that's going to clatter my inbox with 10 CVs a week, of which one of them is mildly interesting. Not true. What do you want companies to think of you as? Like, what do you want to be known as?
As a specialist, ideally, a niche specialist. So yes, we have a kind of unit, an armed unit behind Darwin Recruitment, which is why we're probably one of the leaders in tech recruiters in general. But as an individual, you know, you've got somebody that only focuses on a very small patch in Germany and on the niche specialism, which is obviously for me the machine learning under data science. So I would like somebody to know that, you know, you're going to come to me because I kind of engage with the right talent pools, the people that you are talking with, and also industry specific. So obviously we work quite closely in terms of retail machine learning or finance machine learning. So, you know, the people that candidates that I'm dealing with genuinely will always be in your kind of candidate pool. So you know you're going to come to me, and chances are, if you haven't come to me already, I'll probably speak in some of your candidates that are already working for your company. So it's going to go around in that kind of way. And also, yeah, to get the point across, we're not a CV send company. I'm definitely not. There's nothing worse than that, like getting lots of CVs sent to you. I'd rather be known as someone that you're going to get 1 to 3 CVs per week, but you know they're going to be quality. But the catch side of that is you kind of have to have a conversation with us first, you know, over the phone. And I know that's where people haven't got time to do the signed contracts or the terms or anything. As much as that is a pain for everyone, the only reason, you know, it's important for me to do that is so I can do a better job. So that 20 to 40 minutes of that call where we're kind of qualifying the job, understanding it, that does take 40 minutes of your time. But the kind of best thing about it is you're going to gain a lot more time back, because ultimately you'll be getting a better CVs than sieving through 50 CVs that don't even match your criteria. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're different. There are a lot of agencies out there that they'll see a job description and send you 50 people they think might be good, but that's no good for anyone. Whereas we are kind of a niche recruitment specialist. So that's kind of how. And
I just want to like emphasise that with every best intention, every best will in the world, an internal recruitment team at a company cannot spend the amount of hours and days nurturing a niche talent pool like Katie does. All Katie speaks to is machine learning engineers, and if she does that over a 12-month period, she's going to know more machine learning engineers than your internal recruitment team can ever get access to. So I'm sure internal recruitment teams do great at hiring for the occasional machine learning role, and when there's 1 or 2 of them it's easy, but when you need to hire multiple skilled machine learning people, your immediate network of people will run dry at some point. Then you have to gain access to a large talent pool of machine learning engineers, which takes time to build up. which is the time that Katie has invested over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So with every best intention and enthusiasm and camaraderie of an internal recruitment team, like, we will fill these machine learning roles. Sometimes, unless you've taken the time to build that network, you just can't compete with a specialist recruiter like Katie.
And I think another thing on that point as well is kind of why we're a bit different, or what I kind of like the most about doing recruitment in general is the people relationships you make. So like, and I think that goes a long way. There's a lot of people that will call up, send this job, and then put someone forward. But me as a person, I'll take a lot of time to really get to know that candidate. We speak on a daily basis usually, and make sure there's, they're okay, we get to know their motives and stuff. So they invest time in me and I invest time in them. So yeah, I think again, that personalised approach is really important. So obviously, I work with a lot of candidates, and I'd like to think I've got a good relationship with them all. So I really take the time to get to know their motives, what they're looking for. Also get to know them as a person. So what, how they're doing at home, like what are they kind of doing and stuff. And I think there's a lot of recruiters out there that they just see that they want to make a deal, they just want to get in there. They don't really care what a candidate's doing. But we're not really like moving jobs, especially in the tech industry where salaries are fairly high. It's a big decision, and you can't pressure someone into making that move like that just because you want to see what that happens for you in the long run. So I think maintaining relationships is really important, and making sure your candidates respect you and ultimately are always going to choose to talk to you. I think I'm quite lucky in the sense that I've got that personalised approach anyway. Being in recruitment for a long time, I think that helps. And again, you get recommendations. So a lot of my pool now of machine learning is because people have recommended me to work to their friends and stuff as well, or colleagues. So I think that's a good approach as well, is being a bit more personalised with the market.
And from that, you will know people that an internal recruitment team, they'll go and do active sourcing. So they're messaging people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn isn't the full talent pool. There are tons of data scientists, machine learning engineers, software developers that are not on LinkedIn anymore because they got sick of all the messages that people were sending them. So when Katie gets recommended a friend or a former colleague that isn't on LinkedIn, your internal recruitment team won't have access to that person. You don't even know they exist. You can't find them. Most of the time, they're not even looking for a job. It's rare that a recommendation comes up and the person is like, oh, perfect for a job. So Katie has a kind of network of people behind the curtain that you just can't access because they're not applying for jobs with their CV, they're not on LinkedIn, they're not on Zing, and they just don't log into GitHub, wherever you might normally find them. So working with a specialist really does give you like a unique access to the full talent pool, which has been built up over a period of years that you just don't see on LinkedIn.
And you get the insights in that way as well, don't you? So, where you're speaking to these candidates, you actually get the insights of how they're getting on in their company, what's going on, like, are they doing well? Is the company going to go under anytime soon? Why are they looking? And because you spend more time getting to know that person, and you can ask that, whereas I think if you're an internal recruiter, there's guidelines and stuff, what you can't really say about a certain job or whatever, whereas from an external, you can really find out the dirt on that company, really.
Yeah, hopefully not too much dirt, but some.